All right. Hello. My name is Juwon Chung. Some of you watching might know me, others might not. Whatever. I'm here today to explain a few things for all of you people out there who might be a little bit confused on the current political aspects of the world. I was confused as all heck when I read over the news a few months ago and into today, right? Like, the script in this has been in production for a while, so this first part was written when Biden first dropped out and Trump got shot. But now Trump's been shot at twice, which is crazy. And it's all been like a huge train wreck. And if you've seen the title of this video, you should know what this is. Kamala versus Trump. What do I, average 9th grade theater kid Juwon Chung, think about this? I'll give a little bit of a disclaimer though, okay? Just so that nobody calls me out for being biased. Yeah, I'm a little bit biased. So is everybody else in this world. I lean a little more to the left, but I will say I've never been a fan of Trump, and I don't think I'm not a huge fan of Kamala either. So take that as you will. All right, let's get started with the structure, all right? I'll start off by giving the general background info on everything that's happening, on how we got here, then Kamala's talking points and campaign promises, then Trump's, and then I'll give a basic summary of their beliefs, and then I'll give my opinion on it, because I matter so much. Good? Okay, thank you. Let's start. Donald Trump is famously a business mogul, a businessman, right? From the Empire State, New York. He is incredibly famous for, well, his show, The Apprentice, and his massive amount of wealth that he's accrued over the course of his 81 years of life, which is a result of both his own efforts and the businesses built by his father. He's been the Republican candidate for the past 3 elections so far, 2016, 2022, and now 2024, and is the former president of the United States. While very popular, his inflammatory and often controversial statements can lead to heavy detractors, culminating in an attempt on his life on July 13th, 2024. Yeah, that was very cool. Okay, Kamala, right? Kamala's the current Democratic candidate taking over for the current President Biden after he dropped out of the current presidential election. She's been the country's vice president for the past 4 years under the Biden administration and has become the de facto Democratic pick since, well, Biden dropped out. I said this already. She's from California and is currently the highest ranked female government official in U.S. history. And speaking of Kamala, let's start with her. Kamala's been well known for the past few years to be rather left-leaning, a lot more than Biden, at least. She's made a pretty significant shift from her 2020 campaign promises, which is honestly kind of surprising. She seems to have abandoned her more progressive views. I mean, single-payer healthcare and a fracking ban in particular. But she still does hold strong on many campaign promises that seem to matter to her deeply. Maybe her most divisive one? Her stance on abortion. Ever since Roe versus Wade was overturned, abortion issues have been a bit of a hot button topic, you know? Harris has, since 2022, been very outspoken about abortion rights and her pro-choice stance on the entire situation. I mean, this stance in general, it's not very different from Biden's, though she does sport some more progressive stances, such as her criticism for the Hyde Amendment, which blocks federal funds for being used for abortions. Another divisive topic that Harris seems to hold a more progressive view on is immigration. Harris has been very deeply involved with immigration for a while now. Biden has placed her in charge of overseeing diplomatic efforts in Central America back in the first half of his first term, and has often publicly supported the increase of Border Patrol agents, right? But she has also stated that her fellow Democrats need to critically examine the role of Immigration and Customs Enforcement, or ICE, after being asked whether she agrees for those pushing for its abolishment. One last thing that Harris seems to believe in very deeply is affordable health care. Harris is following the Biden administration elimination of junk fees, and the full disclosure of all charges for things such as events, lodgings, and car rentals, yada yada yada. You get the gist. Alright, now let's go to the other side of the spectrum, right? Just like Harris, Trump has just a few divisive policies, chief amongst them being his stance on immigration, a center point to his campaign, first in 2016, then in 2022, now in 2024, full 8 years later. Leading his promises is his add-on to his previous administration's efforts to solve the border crisis, the promise to launch the largest scale deportation effort in U.S. history and ending the catch and release instead of detaining all migrants caught entering the states without or authorization. Not only that, he promises to deputize the National Guard and other such law enforcement to help with his deportation effort. Another facet to this plan is to ban travel into the states from people who would threaten national security, such as people from the Gaza Strip, Libya, Somalia, Syria, Yemen, or communists, Marxists, and socialists. And look, despite what popular media would have you think, Trump isn't actually against abortion, not completely. He doesn't want national bans, and has repeatedly refused to commit to signing national abortion bans. While he did celebrate the overturning of Roe v. Wade, a critically important Supreme Court ruling in the matter of abortion, Trump has gone on record saying that he believes it best if states handled the matter of abortion in regard to the beliefs of their own peoples, an exception to cases of rape, incest, and the life of the mother, stating that those cases of abortion are necessary. Another core policy of Trump's is to promise tax cuts, more pay, and more jobs for Americans. He also promised to cut interest rates and promised 3% growth thanks to his tax cuts. He proposed, in addition to the above, widespread tariffs in order to try to reward domestic production. This results in about 10 to 20% tariffs on most foreign countries, with China taking the most hit at a whopping 60%. And lastly, he promises to lower the national debt of the United States. That's pretty self-explanatory. Now, this is the part where it's going to get a little bit divisive, right? Because, well, this is just my opinion from here on. Let's talk about what I think, okay? I don't like either of them. I really don't. I think that while Trump economically is the much stronger candidate, as has been historically proven, I mean, Republicans have always had the stronger economy. It's been like that for the past 30 years. I don't agree with Trump on many moral and philosophical levels. Specifically, just for me. I don't really mind if you don't have a problem with him. That's your choice. Me personally, I'm not here to convince you to do anything. It's just that me personally, I have a problem with him on a philosophical level. I advocate a form of, I suppose you could call it humanitarianism, which is, I believe in people above anything else. What harms the least amount of people is what is best for society, in my opinion. And the thing is, I don't think Trump is going to do that. I think he, generally, from historical context, he doesn't really care about a large group of marginalized people. Specifically, and I did not talk about this in his policies part, but I will mention this, specifically the way he portrays the LGBT community. As somebody in theater, as somebody who is, I don't have a problem with gay people, trans people. I don't care. It's their life. They can choose how they want to live it. As somebody who is friends with those types of people, as somebody who is friends with members of the LGBT community, I see the way they talk about Trump, the way they see him, and I see the things he says about them, trans people in particular, and I see him. I see a genuine harm to society. And it's not just the LGBT community, it's a lot of marginalized groups. Hispanics, in particular, I mean, Latinos, Latinas, Latinxes. But the way he talks about, I mean, even in the recent campaign, right, about the Haitians, they're eating the dogs, they're eating the cats. It's the way he talks about people who are marginalized is it's just deeply disconcerting because they're all people. No matter what you think, they're all people. They all have the same rights as everybody else. They deserve the same amount of respect. And the way he generalizes these communities really doesn't sit well with me. I am a strong believer of the fact that in terms of politics, there's no real good candidate. It's always choosing between one bad thing and another bad thing, the lesser or greater of two evils, right? And especially when it comes to American politics. In terms of American politics, I see this as there's always going to be a more radical candidate. They're always going to try to outdo each other. And simply because of the fact of how American politics works, it's just no real change can ever be implemented. And that's really depressing in a way, isn't it? What I want to do, and this is the first video I'm making for this channel, YouthX. This is my program. This is my project. The thing I want to do is to educate people on things like this so that in the future, maybe some actual change can be made. I think Trump and Kamala, they indicate the real problem with current politics. They are so fundamentally against each other. They make the biggest problems out of a lot of things that maybe shouldn't have been as big as they are. And no real change ever gets made. Nothing ever happens. Everything's in a gridlock because nobody can agree on anything. And that's really sad. I just think that, and this is just my personal opinion, I will always go for the option that will hurt the least amount of people. The way I see it, the American economy, even when it's not at its strongest, is still the greatest in the world. It's still the strongest country in the world economically, no matter if it's Republican or Democratic. And I look at the amount of harm that Trump has caused, the way he talks about certain groups of people, the way he promotes hate, the way he promotes violence as seen by the Capitol Hill riots. And I can't help but think he's not a good candidate. And I know that there are going to be people that I know who disagree with me on this, but I will not back down on this opinion. Not right now, not ever. I don't think either of them are good candidates, but the simple fact of the matter is I will always advocate for something that causes the least amount of harm. Vote for whoever you want. I can't control that. Just make sure you have it informed. Make sure you inform yourself on the current state of politics right now. Thank you.